So
yeah.
so just then, just segue on into these questions. If it's okay that I do that.
Yeah, I can't go too much longer, to be
No,
honest.
we'll go. I want to shoot through them, and then you pick which one would be
Okay.
most approachable for you.
I mean, I'm open to any of them. Which one you should pick because you sent them. How about that?
Well, see, these questions kind of they developed out of a few group conversations, and then initially this was I'll say a group of identifying Black men.
Okay.
However, within that, because the cultural net is so large, a few of them are Jewish. So racially they're not Black, but then culturally hip hop, it's kind of one and the same. It's so this is why I kind of opened the conversation up, for people like yourself, because I thought it'd be better explored outside.
Okay.
Outside of the identifiable Black consciousness, because it's it's kind of intertwined with hip hop. So let me see here. Let me look at my screen. Let's go with So let's see. Let's go. I have the first question there. That one may be a little heavy.
Yeah.
Let me see.
The second one was about.
Yeah. Oh, let's go. Okay. Let's go with 3.
Okay. Yeah.
If that's okay.
That's what made me think of the Kendi book. Because he talks about what I think you're talking about there. He calls it assimilation.
Assimilation.
Yeah, and he doesn't necessarily approve of it.
You said so. In your thoughts. I mean, again, because I don't know how you read or hear this question, and I'll do my best to kind of give you where I'm coming from with it. For me, what it's called when other populations adapt, living within so-called white dominant social construct and ethos. At first, right off the bat, I'm aware that people that would otherwise phenotypically be viewed as white don't identify exclusively by that.
Okay.
So, most people that would otherwise say, okay, I'm white, that's not how they self-identify.
Right.
It's much more involved than that.
Right.
Especially when we get into culture, you would know, moving from an Italian community into an Irish one.
No, I think you're right. But please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's why it's kind of shaped so-called white people, because the dominant social construct or ethos that is white people, that is a very specific. I had this conversation with an identifying Black man, and we have a very unique cultural approach. And in talking to him, I let him know that I don't know any good white people. And he was like, well, D, you can't. What do you mean by that? Well, he couldn't grasp that, the way I view this thing is that the people that I know that would be okay with saying that they're white, that's not how they view themselves. People that view themselves that way don't care whether I consider them good or not.
I see.
And so people that identify exclusively as white people, I'm very clear. I don't think there's any good in those.
Right.
I just I don't see that. So this was that conversation that kind of constructed this question. This question evolved out of that conversation.
Well, when you say that, then you know you can't, if people have that as their big identifier of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
hi back, um, um, then I think maybe the other perspective that maybe you're taking for granted, and probably you should, is that when they see you, they only see one thing, and then you've got the divide.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Very,
that
very,
makes complete sense to me.
very, very clear.
Totally.
So then this is out of that awareness, at least for me, is how I get to this phenomena for me being what I call, hear this, integration.
Yeah.
For me, that's what that that space is called. It's called when it's a dominant white social construct and ethos that is kind of, where other populations adapt living within that. I've known that to be what we call integration.
Yeah.
In light of, segregation, separation, we know what that looks like. At least for me, that looks like a certain thing. So in light of that, I look at, well, what is integration?
Yeah.
And then and so the flip to that is how I double down. And for me, this is what it is for me. If we were to, let me screen share one more time on that one. If we were to interchange white dominant with black dominant social construct and ethos, what would that be called?
Right. Well, I mean, you want to think that it's integration. I mean, I think integration is a complicated word
Mm-hmm.
because, and I'm not sure, like I'm thinking about flipping this, and I'm thinking about, well, places that are majority, they're black dominated, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But they have white populations. I mean, does integration, I guess I'm asking, in either setting, does integration really work? I mean, we were talking about how segregated Miami is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I want to call it integration, but then my question is one side accommodating the other side more? And I think that's what Kenny means when he says he calls it assimilationist. What he means is that the black community, in effect, is doing all the work.
Well, I definitely I can appreciate assimilation.
Yeah.
I don't know right off. I'd have to live with it for a bit to know if for me it's interchangeable with integration.
Yeah. He doesn't mean it to be, I don't think.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure how he means it when he uses it.
Right. I won't either. But I'm non-apologetic as to how I receive and approach it.
Of course.
Whatever it is, because there will be the only way that I could assist for sincere conversation with one. I only know what it means to me. But I hadn't considered that. But man, I love that. That read kind of sparked that for you. It being able to kind of see that, because it does introduce at least another space and light to. But however, my thought as to what that looks like, the same in reverse. If it were in quotations, it's white dominant social construct and ethos,
Mhm.
which for me, if that were interchange, the only term I could come up with or spatial identifier I can come up with is hip hop culture.
Okay. Hop assume not blending is not the word I want, but hip hop assumes diversity and pulling things together. I don't. That's what I thought was in your question, but I wasn't sure.
That's well framed question. Does it assume that
No idea.
that's no that, but see, that's a well framed question, because whether you are of the culture or not, it's pertinent to what is its calling, what is its what is it proposing more over purpose.
Okay.
What does hip hop propose?
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't either, which is why, with for many years I assumed myself a part of said considered hip hop culture. I've learned I'm not I'm not from a hip hop culture. I have a very specific cultural precondition. It's and hip hop, or the culture of hip hop, was more or less a space that I could express, my cultural identification through. And if that's not what's going on with all others, that would, based on the way that question was shaped, it kind of says to me, I repurposed that question that you just kind of raised. I don't know if it was an inquiry or thought share, whatever it was, but it almost said to me the same way. Well, if that's not what you're doing, then what is it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if that's what makes it a culture, then thereby is it then a subculture? It's not really a culture. It's just something that is used to incubate and perhaps cultivate expressions,
Right.
kind of like a safe space to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the peculiar thing is that its ethos is Black dominant,
Yeah.
which that doesn't work the same way if it were white dominant.
Right.
It's not like everyone doesn't have a voice in integration,
Mm-hmm.
but in hip hop,
Oh.
based on the precepts of it being hip hop, if you're any good at any form of the expression, then you're kind of a part of the culture.
Well, see, I would have thought that if in integration, I mean, one of the characteristics of true integration is that everybody does have a voice. That's what you want.
Yeah, I would say so, but when exploring from ideally this construct of white dominance, it absolutely says what it is, moreover what we call it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, again, it's an observation. There's still much of this that I'm living with, looking at. The assimilation offer that's interesting. That's interesting.
I think it is interesting because I had never thought of it that way. And then I thought, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, because the usual thing that's used to describe is when people emigrate from, say, another country. Okay, my family emigrated from Sicily, and they made it their business to assimilate as fast as they could. They gave up the language. They didn't maintain the language at home, the whole deal. They didn't change their names, but I have cousins whose family did. They changed their surname. Their surname is Scott, Scott. Mm-hmm. So no, that's fine. But I mean, And the next generation of people after me, when they started naming their kids, um, they didn't do what usually was done in our family, like you name them after relatives and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, they didn't do that. They got first of all, they were marrying out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, oh my God, they were marrying non-Italians. And then the next thing was that the kids' names were all over the place. Some of them had American names. Some of them are just plain weird, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nobody named, like nobody has my name. So that's interesting too, because they're farther and farther away from, and that's assimilation. Wow. But it only took them 2 generations to start marrying people who were out of the group. Um, so yeah, I think I froze. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, okay. No, what I said was it only took them 2 generations to start marrying people outside the group.
Mm.
And that's interesting too. Um, so for what it's worth, that's how I think of assimilation.
Mm.
And where, the one group, I mean, like it's a decision. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm giving up my language. I'm never going back to visit the old country.
Mm.
Some groups do. We only went when the second and third generation had the money to travel, but my grandfather never wanted to go back, ever, not even for a visit.
Well, in that approach or that view of assimilation, in light of that approach, that would, for Black, any that identify Black, you know, that form of assimilation is completely different. It's not. It wasn't a choice to immigrate into, in many spaces. In many spaces, it's not to say that in all cases, because there are even many from like the Caribbean,
Right.
and even true African Americans that do not identify with the Black American or American African experience.
Right.
So
I know the whole deal. I mean, you can't really. The whole ground of comparison between immigrants is very different. My grandfather didn't wait to go. There was nothing for him there, and so he did whatever he had to do when he got here to fit in and all the rest of it. But the way for him eventually to do it. I mean, my mother used to tell me they would not be caught dead speaking Italian outside the house.
Wow.
And there was some stigma and stuff like that. So even in the area where they were, which is surprising to me, but that's what she said. And I don't have to go into this. This is an old story in America. Really, but that's exactly where it's different for the Black community.
Sure, it's my internet because I've been having issues today. I'm sure it's my internet.
That's okay. I think there's a lot of high demand for the internet these days, and that has a lot to do with it. So yeah, I mean, they're not comparable experiences in so many ways. So,
but there is some value to explore assimilation through. Man, I've got to live with it. As a matter of fact, man, that may be a read I need to look into.
Well, I think what I remember of the Kendi book, he doesn't think it's necessarily a good thing because, in effect, one group is doing all the work. It says, I'm trying to be, okay, and not make it hard for you to accept me. That's really what it says. And if it's all one-sided, then it's really, I mean, it's not a balance. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, that is, that's to dial it in so you can get on with your day. I just want to, for some, I don't know how this correlates, but it just brought into mind like this approach love, and love where it has any relation to a language. Are you familiar with like the love languages and that whole spatial terminology? I was in conversation with one that was kind of sharing with me through their love language and sharing with me like their affirmations. But how I began to hear it was that, okay, well, love where there's a language that is love that has anything to do with spoken word, kind of, it gets muddy for me in this sense, which is, and I relate this to just like, what we're talking about. It's so nuanced that even love, if for one that would just say I love you, and that affirms a quality for them, if that same person would otherwise not follow up on a phone call or return a phone call to you, then it would appear that in them saying that they love you is more pointing to that they have a better propensity to not intentionally harm you than to on purpose help you. That's just what it demonstrates for me, like the love language, it being even a space where language is equitable to what does it do?
Yeah.
Other than affirm something for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, I don't know how to correlate it for you, but how I hear it is just that this is how spaces like this, that we're speaking on. What's the book? What's the book? What's the name of that book?
How to be an anti-racist.
How to be an anti-racist.
By Ibram X. Kendi, Kendi.
Yeah, see that there's just something to language there.
Yeah.
That again, I hear it. Well, how to love you? How do I love you?
I see. How to be yes.
Yeah. How is it going to be possible for me to love you?
Uh-huh.
And that, if it can be explored that way, wow, it's just.
No, that's huge. Can I quote you next time I'm in a discussion? I'm seeing
by all means, if there's something quotable, run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it going to be possible for me to love you? That's tremendous.
Yeah, I mean that's when I really open myself up to receive the substance to what's going on there. That's how I hear that.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember now who this quote is from. I wish I did. I'll try to find out. But it was somebody, either, I want to say it's, William Barber, the guy in North Carolina, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
He's the African American pastor who's kind of making people pay attention about the
movement. Yes.
I'm not sure this is his quote, but justice is love in action.
But once again, if that's just pursued through language, it can only be received through one's version of love.
Yeah.
Justice is not always pretty.
Well, it's not, but I mean, it also says if you're trying to get it, if you're trying to work for it,
Oh,
you're trying to, embrace people who need to be treated justly. And I mean, it assumes that they're not being treated that way now.
mm.
So,
Whew. Well, I think we can all find a bit of injustice in this world if we look for it. You know? So,
oh God, this is so great.
no, it is always great. You, you,
Oh,
you give it up and you make me go for
me too.
it.
Oh, geez, I miss you. Holy cow. Uh,
Well, again, we're seeing what things will look like. If it looks like more of this, we'll just be adaptive to the space and make it work.
it's not bad at all, really. I mean, honestly, you didn't have to come up and freeze, and that's good.
Yeah, and I selfishly, admittedly, I mean, I kind of like just being in my own space, man.
I
You
know.
know,
I know.
yeah.
I was talking to somebody yesterday about, when things ever get whatever normal is going to be, it's
Uh,
going to be hard to make yourself get out of the house,
well, you know what? It's always been hard for me. Now I can just admit it.
Well, you have a nice house, you got a lovely family. I mean, yeah, there it is,
I have to agree with you. It doesn't come with, it doesn't not come with what it comes with.
Yeah.
But I couldn't trade it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I couldn't.
Oh man.
But man, love, hugs, man. Wishing you more intrigue, curiosity, expansion to your journey, because I know it's always good. You bring light, you bring love, you bring affirmations.
Oh.
Yeah. So
watch out. It's gonna get like this big. No, it's such a pleasure to talk to you all the time. I always learn a lot. I just, I like you so much.
Well, if you knew that you were speaking for if you knew, you'd say it a lot more.
Yeah.
You give me all the juice. You just give it all up, because everything you're giving me is what I receive. It is truly what I receive. So just to the language, I get the love. You do the love. So hearing you say it, I love that you can hear yourself saying it, because when you say it, you're saying it for me too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And once again, and Phil he really did look well. He does. Yeah, it looks like he had a little bounce in him.
He does.
I don't know what that freezing weather is going to do for his joints, but
it isn't great. I'll tell you, for either of us, it's hard. But and I can't go swimming now. That's the hardest thing, because that would be the best, swimming. But we keep, you got to move, so we move.
Yeah. Well, do wish him well, and as you share your recipe, I'll share my fig brew with you. It's
okay.
It's interchangeable with you, because you can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's essentially just chop some Black Mission figs, pound some ginger.
Yeah.
And
no, I love the idea of figs. I never would have thought of that. That's great.
Oh, it's such a refreshing tea. Such a refreshing tea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.